Good morning from out west. It's finally raining. It started raining after having really no rain for almost 120 days of no rain. We're finally getting some rain today, which is great. Fall's coming. Hope it's this way going forward. Hopefully, everyone can see me clearly. The background's good. Okay. I'm not sure this is your first time joining a webinar or not, but welcome to the Deaf TA Action Project. This webinar is a monthly webinar. It's the third Monday of the month, and we have various topics for subsequent months. Going forward, I'll give you more information on what other projects the Deaf Action Group is doing. After the webinar, we'll discuss that. So this webinar will be recorded. It'll be uploaded onto the Deaf TA website shortly. And you can always refer back to that at a later time and share it with your coworkers, colleagues, friends, family members, etc. Okay. So, September, this is the month of September, which means that October is coming up, and October is a huge month for us. It's if you're not new to this field, you'll know that October is and April. October is in 2 weeks from here, and that is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. DVAM for short. The last few years here in Washington State, I'm not sure if it was where you are, but domestic violence awareness. Yes, we want to modify that to action, DV Action Month. More than just awareness, we want to spread, educate, of course, awareness, but what actions need to be taken to make things happen. We've been doing a lot of work in this field, and we want to include the community, the general public, etc. So action's a nice for Domestic Violence / Action Month. In April, every year it's sexual assault. That's what we call it in Washington State, is sexual assault. Some states refer to it as SV, or sexual violence. Again, interchangeable, SA, DV, SA. But anyways, that's April. So next month is purple, and then in April it is teal. All right. Wondering if, would you mind typing in any notes to me if you're new to this? There's Lindsay, Samantha. I'm not sure if I've met the two of you or not. If I have, I apologize. I'm wondering if you're new to this field and this work, or if you've been in this field for quite some time. Would you mind typing in a response? That'd be fantastic. All right, I have some things in front of me here, and also referring to the website for specific information later on. So, what's the history behind domestic violence, sexual assault awareness, and the awareness months? Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So, what's so special about this year? It's the 30th anniversary of Awareness Month. So that means that this was started back in 1987, 30 years ago, was the very first nationwide formal promoted event. So backing up, it started back in the 80s. It started as a Day of Unity. This Day of Unity was done nationwide for domestic violence agencies and advocates coming together in unity for a day. And that was done in the month of October, in one of those days throughout the month. And it would have been and we discussed later on what was done. But as the day has gone on and the years went on, it became a week of awareness, 1 week of unity, and now it's become a month. It's an entire month of awareness. So you need more than just a day or a week, obviously. We need a full month of a variety of awareness activities, action points, etc. So now, since becoming an entire month-long event, the Day of Unity is considered the first Monday of the month. So October, let me look, 2nd. October 2nd will be considered the Day of Unity. The Day of Unity started back in 1981 and has progressed since then. It was kind of an informal event. It was on a national level, but state, local mostly was where actions were done, word was spread in that regard, etc. As time moved on, and there was a realization that, yeah, you know what, we need a more formal event. So they established a more formal event in 1987. At the same time, that same year, was the very start of the National Domestic Violence Hotline with a toll-free number that same year. So it was a big celebration, a big deal, and that's been done now for 30 years. So this is the 30th year. It is a huge year for this field and this industry, and hopefully your agencies will do something quite large this year. I'm wondering if you will. What are your thoughts on that? What are your ideas? We'll cover that later on. I'd like to get your input, and we got 2 weeks to prepare, so hopefully you have any plans or thoughts on what you'll be doing. Also, next Monday, we can discuss that further as well. So the purpose of the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, like I mentioned previously, it's an advocates unity event nationwide coming together, and the idea is this advocacy work in the DVSA field is tough. It's isolating potentially. Some communities aren't invested, or there's so many things to look at here, and things need to start changing, of course, to become more aware. But really, it's advocates need to come together in a day of unity for these reasons. And the big goal, there's really 3 main goals for DV Awareness Month. It's connecting to an action, to domestic violence work, to end violence, come together, have ideas and discussions. The second point is to grieve for those who are victims and have passed away from domestic violence. And thirdly, it's to celebrate survivors who have survived through domestic violence. Those are the 3 big points and objectives for DVAM. So, thoughts on that would be, so think about activities for that month. Think through those 3 key components. What activities are related to one of those 3 key pieces? As I forgot to advance the PowerPoint as I'm going away here and presenting. Give me a second. Okay. All right, I think let me back up a little bit and cover these points and see if I've missed anything. We covered the first one, second. Okay, the 4th point here. 1989 going forward is formally recognized for DVAM on an annual event. Similarly, it also recognizes SAAM, the idea of coming up with those annual events going forward. Okay, moving on to the next slide here. So we had talked about domestic violence and the idea, let's talk about Sexual Assault Awareness Month and actions, of course. So this started back in the 70s. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the idea of the vigil or the march. It's the Take Back the Night event. The history behind this event would have been back in it was when the rape crisis centers came to be and various shelters. Many women that were raped, during the night or whatever. So the idea was to pick a day in an evening where people would come together, mostly women, would march and take back during the nighttime and take back the night. And the idea is it's reclaim ourselves. We have the right to be safe regardless if it's nighttime. And that's the point, and it's still been going on since then. There's still some of them are very localized, but it's also become very international as well. Anyway, in the 80s, advocates were realizing, they wanted more of a formalized gathering, similar to what the domestic violence group was doing. And they like to do something similar, so they decided that they'd host a week-long event in April, really any week in April. And they decided they'd select the color teal. And this became, who the leader here was. And led this information and distribution of dates and information was NSVRC, the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. And there's a lot of information listed there with various toolkits and information and the like. In the 90s, then, it became formally recognized as Sexual Assault Awareness Month for April. Then in 2001, the United States formally recognized the formal recognition of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, really since 2001. So it happened in the 70s, of course, on a community level, with more of a grassroots people level of a unity and going through all of that, but on a national recognition with Congress and the government recognizing it wasn't until much, much later. So it wasn't that long ago. So really everything was going through the NSVRC as the coordination effort point, creating themes every year. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but the Sexual Assault Awareness Month typically is a theme on an annual basis. I think one year they focused on colleges, prevention in college. In other years, I can't remember what they focused on. I'm thinking. I can't remember the exact title, but they do different titles and themes in every year. So there's a variety of different places. Domestic violence, sexual violence in the workplace. Focusing on healthy relationships, it's an annual thing. So they created their own ideas based on those themes. So right now there's a new website from the NSVRC, and they have various links, and I typically will use that as a resource. For domestic violence, I'll look at the National Ending Domestic Violence website. So that's a good resource to go to as well. But your state's coalition may have quite a bit of information as well. I'll show you one piece of material I have from the coalition. So let's move on here. No questions so far? So thoughts on this? If you have outreach staff or anyone in your office that participates in an outreach networked effort, you can look at that, either way. But it's nice to have a gathering. Typically there's a team of people with other staff members, advocates, maybe a manager can get together and outreach. It's a big, huge job to think about. So maybe rather than doing it alone, you can come together as a group and how to spread the word within your community and get your community to participate. It's a lot of thinking about events and how to partner with community and on the community level and also on the national level. What's out there nationally, which could be great, and then also locally in your community. So here's some different examples of different community sort of gatherings, community awareness, just different ideas. And feel free to share your ideas that you've done up to this point. Go ahead and chat them in the chat box. I'd love to see them. I'm not sure if you can see each other's chats, but I can repeat what I see in the chat comments. Advocates training. So inviting the community to come over and do advocates training. They don't have to become an advocate, but they can receive additional education, learning about domestic violence, really kind of how to maybe notice a different sort of, oppression, privilege, things of that nature. Maybe they won't become a true, become an actual advocate, but they become an advocate that may impact their friends, themselves, their family with this information. So it's good information to have and share. Here in Washington State, the work here with staff have to have 50 hours of training here. Different states have different regulations and rules, but for Washington, you can modify that to fit your local community. So something to look at. Or you can just take it as is and use it. Again, advocates training is a suggested piece to look into. Here at ADWAS, we had what we called it wasn't advocates training per se. What we called it was a community conversation. That's right, a community conversation. And we had 4 series of workshops. One was a movie in relation to domestic violence. And this was a film we watched, and we discussed that after watching it. The second piece was a essay 101. Then we did oppression and privilege, and I can't remember the other ones. But anyways, it was a community conversation. It was well attended, had good dialogue, good feedback. It was good. The second idea here is the teen dating violence education. Always a great thing to have. And if you have a great relationship with a school, please capitalize on the opportunity here. Some people struggle with that, but you'll need to have a good relationship and build that relationship. If you have it, it's a great thing to use to go in to talk to teen dating violence, education, get in the classroom, in front of teens, middle school, high school, etc. Also, looking at the school, you could do a workshop, a parents' workshop, bringing their teens and youth in. That can be done. Workshops are good, but yeah. Oftentimes, you'll see a Take Back the Night march, or a vigil of some kind. That Take Back the Night concept. Kind of domestic violence, sexual assault information. But yes, that's very good. But those vigils can be great. It used to be a vigil where everyone got together and remembered those shared information regarding survivors who passed away as a result of domestic violence or sexual assault. Deaf survivors would tell their story. Yeah. Also, what's very popular is a Healthy Relationships 101 workshop. It's great to have a DVSA point of view as well. It's also great to have the positives in the workshop. What is a healthy relationship? Communication relationships. Really focusing on that and seeing, that information being shared about DV and SA and how that's all worked in and how that all connects back. If you see the last part of my slide here, there's a challenge here is how do you engage community members to get involved? And secondly, how do we measure the impact on the community? So if you have this event, what's the impact on the community? How do you have a metric or measure for that? There's no right or wrong answer at all, but just a food for thought, if you will. If you wouldn't mind chatting your ideas in the box here, I'd love to hear from you. So why don't we take a minute here, and I'm hoping I can see your chat messages, but let's have you chat your thoughts here. Okay, looking for thoughts. So here at ADWAS, there are some events that we've done that are well attended. A lot of people show up. I'd say at least 30 or more. Some of them we have 5. In the past we felt disappointed, like, the turnout's not as good as we'd liked, but someone said to us, you still have 5. It means that 5 people are bringing that back to their friends and their family members and reaching out. It takes time. It is a process, growing and improving your community. But the idea of even 5, you could do a survey with those 5. Surveys can be successful. Some of them you don't see a whole lot of answers, but it varies. But face-to-face conversations are very helpful in getting responses. Wondering, why they didn't come, or they did come. Maybe some people are like, ooh, that topic's too much for me. I'm not comfortable, or a conflict in schedule. But again, that's something to, remain positive. Whether it's 5, it's still people that you're reaching out to in your community in some regard. I can remember one particular year we hosted a In Your Shoes workshop. If you're not familiar with the concept, I'll give you the background. The In Your Shoes is a hands-on activity created here in Washington State by the Washington Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And the idea was it's a very good hands-on activity. The idea is you're doing characters and your story. Um, and it's a whole variety of pieces you're using. There's different options where you would more or less role play, where you become the survivor, the other person becomes the observer, and you go through these cards and you have this scenario done. And it's saying, would you want to select which shoes do you want to be in? And so you're looking at these ideas and you try that path, if you will, or you'll pick this path and see how it goes forward. And it's great. So we've hosted this in your shoes almost on an annual basis, or maybe semi-annual basis. But the very first was 2004. I was at the Deaf Center. I want to say we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 30, 35 people. It was a huge turnout. Was really excited, talked through this. Great discussion points happened. This is, back in 05, 2006 timeframe. As it moved forward a few years ago, we had done things, throughout the years, and we hosted something again at a different place. And we had 5 attendees. And all 5 who came were for services. There was no, I'm just coming in for education. It was interesting to see that, which is great. Having good conversations and learning. There's a whole variety of things you'll see, what happens with the year. Some people are like, oh, I already did that. I don't need to do it again. So there's a variety of reasons. So again, challenging how people participate, whether it's small or not, it still counts. They still count their blessings, and they're positive, and in determining what are the, there's always room to improve and how to grow. What are you looking for? Making sure that we are familiar and taking the pulse of the community. What does the community want to see? What are they interested in? And trying to fit that as well. As for measuring impact, surveys can be useful. We've done that before. Evaluations of post-event evaluations. We have yet to do it now, but I think maybe it would be cool to make a video blog or a vlog where people could comment on what they've learned and what they found as an aha moment. Things of that nature. You could do that if you wanted to. It's a good thought here on how we know we're making an impact. Is because, grants, your funders like to hear those stories. That data, that information you can share with them. That's where these funds help this event be possible, and they can see that, which is a good thing. So donors, this is a good look. So, all right, moving forward. Okay. Let's move on to SAAM. And this is advocates training, very similar to what we talked about previously. In your shoes, that's a great event we've hosted. We've done that before in downtown Seattle. We did that once. We had a decent turnout. We really promoted that very heavily. And our turnout was good. It was the deaf community members that showed up. Some people that were hearing that didn't really know anything about it saw this event posted on some other website. And so we had them show up, and some of our members who attend all of the events, the In Your Shoes events, participated here, this ADWAS event. So it was cool to see that. Good community. It was in downtown Seattle. It's very good. Through that, I remember that event. I ran into a deaf person. I learned about ADWAS. I didn't know anything about it, and provided services later. The idea is, this idea of maybe by luck they came in and saw it and learned about us, and very, very cool. So again, good outreach efforts. Good outreach. But the In Your Shoes event, the history of this is there's a gentleman who hosted this some years ago. It was a small group of men, and they were using women's high heel shoes, walking in the park, spreading awareness, having discussions, to really starting dialogue in regards to sexual violence, domestic violence. rape, and the like. And it was the idea of men stopping rape. Again, a very small group. It became an internationally wide event. So you'll see this event all over the place. And that event was under the Venture Humanity, which is a nonprofit organization, about 2007. That event, the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, is a fundraiser that donates to centers, crisis centers, DV shelters, and the like, DVSA services, and that's where the funds go. Why high heel shoes? I myself don't wear high heel shoes myself. I'm not a fan. They're painful, but it's an obvious way to recognize that, wow, getting the idea of walking in her shoes and gets people talking. It gets men involved. This is focused on men participating to ending violence, sexual violence. And you get an idea of what it would feel like to actually walk in women's shoes, if you will. And it starts getting the dialogue and conversation started on this topic. Other outside people might say, hey, what's going on? It's interesting, it's curious, and learning about it, and it's an education point from that point going forward. So, that may become, it can be controversial. It may be, excluding men survivors, excluding transgender, excluding certain groups, but it can be inclusive of that event as well. So, just an interesting take on that and the history behind it. So, but it can be controversial. But if you're hosting an event, keep in mind how inclusive and being inclusive of everyone. Regarding who's walking, they can be anybody. Doesn't have to be just men, but it just started out that way a while ago. But again, anyone's welcome: kids, women, men. A whole LGBT, the whole like can be involved, inclusive. Okay, next is the Clothesline Project. I don't know if you've ever hosted an event like this before. We've hosted it here and there. We still have T-shirts that we hang on the line, during that awareness month. I'll bring up a website here. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but I hope so. I'm showing a website here, but let me pull it up here. It's a lot of details about the Clothesline Project. But basically the bottom line is that the Clothesline Project is for people to get together, and it can be survivors, or it could be, knowing someone who is a survivor of something. Getting together, and the idea is to have a T-shirt and a variety of different colors of T-shirts that represent each person. For example, you've got yellow, you've got red, purple, black. One of those shirt colors may represent survivors of sexual assault. Another one may represent domestic violence. One represents survivors who became disabled during or from a result of DVSA activities. That's the idea of the groupings. The white T-shirt can represent someone who passed away from this sort of violence. A blue shirt would represent somebody, or somebody who has experienced childhood sexual assault. So that's the idea here. And the shirts are different colors, and they represent different groups. And then you would write on that shirt a message, like hands are not for hurting, things of that nature. I experienced this, I've survived this. Different messages are written on the shirts, and then they're hung on a clothesline to represent the different groups of people, and you can see that and learn from it and create discussions. Maybe there's stories behind it and the like. So I remember here at ADWAS, we hosted a Clothesline Project event twice in this month during the Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The idea is who has identifying survivors, wanting to provide space for them to process this during the event, after the event. And we had counselors and advocates on site as well. We had another event here for the community members at large, whether identified as survivors or not, but it was just community at large. Maybe you knew somebody who experienced these things or whatever, but everyone came in. And, some people were not aware of anything of what this was about, and we explained it to them as they showed up. So, again, a very good, heartfelt event. During that event, you'll either hear a bell. For us being deaf, here we flash the lights. But the idea is with this bell tolling, or the bell represents every 10 seconds it goes off, which means that somebody is passed away from domestic violence, sexual assault, or the bell tolls where someone's being raped now every 6 minutes, whatever that time frame is. So if the bell rings every 10 seconds, that represents that somebody is being abused right now. And so it's persistence every 10 seconds. We selected one of those statistics, and we continue doing it every 10 seconds. The light would flash, and the light would flash every 10 seconds for the entire event. Maybe it's an hour, hour and a half. But the idea is people feel like, oh my gosh, it's keep going and going and going. And it's like, wow, it's enough. But that's what thing that's so important. It happens all over the country here, how often this occurs. And it really sinks in. And oftentimes it's people really stick to that point of the event. It's becoming intrusive, but that's the point. So what's important that you have somebody on site to process, during the event and also post-event. Often as people will become really moved, it becomes quite heavy. So I put two flyers up on this particular PowerPoint slide that ADWAS recently used at the 2017 Sexual Assault Awareness Month event. The first one that we hosted was a trivia. It was a trivia day for the Awareness Month. It was cool. With this trivia, we had a variety of people. We rented a really cool place, and we told people to, come, bring a team with you, or come as you are, and you can build teams as you're there. And we had we had four groups, 4 or 5 groups. And the idea is like a trivia. So you'd have like going to a pub. Occasionally there's trivia night on the screen, and you play as a group. It's the same concept as that. And so it's really enjoyable. It worked well. There's different information, different tidbits on sexual violence, sexual assault, oppression, privilege, current events, previous events, really facts about the NFL. We talked about a whole variety of things. If you're interested or want to know more about this, please feel free to contact us. We'd be happy to share with you what we've used. And the second piece I have up here is the trauma-informed yoga. It was led by this yoga instructor, Jesselyn. She herself is in California, and she trained as a trauma-informed yoga leader. I was not able to attend this event, but people mentioned it was very positive. We invited her to come on out, and we hosted one gathering for staff only, and then the next one was for the community members at large. And again, those are 2 ideas we did most recently. I'm not sure if you want to type in your comments what you did for the Awareness Month. Again, if you want to contact us for information, how to do this, other ideas and things, please feel free to exchange the information. I want to know what your ideas are as well. What did you do for sexual assault, domestic violence awareness? I'm always up for anything new. I do see a comment here. Erin stating she had hosted a Clothesline Project event. Very, very powerful event. And yes, it is very powerful. People are, it's heartfelt, it's heavy, becomes very thought-provoking during and after the event. They're really thinking that through. Erin, on your Clothesline project, did you keep the shirts, or did you have people take those home with them? And if you did keep them, do you plan on reusing them at your office? Are they up now, or did you put them up every year? Yes, very healing for everyone. That's very true. Definitely. Okay, on the community level, let's look at the national level. Different ideas and thoughts of what we can do on a national level. Well, today's time, with social media, it's incredible really a big wow moment on this digital age. It's so easy to connect and unify. It's so easy to do so. It's overwhelming, but easy. For example, with social media, back in 2014, we did this piece. It was AdWas did this. It was the idea of the Purple Day, or the Purple Thursday. We selected a day in October where everyone would wear purple, and all staff members were purple, and we took photos. And I believe we promoted this nationwide, had them take pictures of themselves, and we put them on our Facebook page. I think we did that. But it was one example of an idea of what we did at a national level and how we unified. In AdWas wanting to do another national level event too. We're talking through what we can do. We have a few ideas. Maybe save it for this year, maybe for next year. We'll see. But maybe save it for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Has anyone done any national level sort of campaigns, and what have you done? Erin's responding about the clothesline project. Oh, she said with the shirts, people took them or they're kept. Some people took them home and kept it with them, and some of them donated them to us, and we typically, the Ignite staff will hang them up during the awareness month. So yeah, same here. Okay, moving on to Sexual Assault Awareness Month. On a national level, well, it's actually an international level, there is the Denim Day. The history behind Denim Day is it's a collaboration for one day in April. I can't remember the date. I want to say it was late April. It's where everyone would wear jeans or denim, obviously, wearing that and collaborating to think back and recognizing it doesn't matter how we dress, we don't deserve to be raped. What happened in Italy, the court is a rape case that came up in Italy. And a woman was commenting, and the judge said, decided to excuse the rape charges against her perpetrator because the woman was wearing jeans. She was wearing jeans while she was, or when she was raped. And the judge said, I feel that obviously wearing the jeans, she was, they weren't tight enough because it was easy for the rapist to remove her jeans. It was very easy to take them off, meaning that therefore, maybe she wanted it. She wanted this. She wanted to have sex. She wasn't raped per se. And it was just an unbelievable worldwide shock and confusion. How we dress, we know it does not matter how we dress. So that's the idea of Denim Day. And again, an international event. And again, social media, sharing information, dispersing information, getting people to be involved and wear jeans that day. Okay, look at the second one. There is using the SAAM toolkit. There's a lot of good resources in that toolkit, ideas on how to collaborate. I know that, with the Deaf TA project here, we love seeing this sort of effort, this collaboration on a national level, wanting to do this. And so there are some ideas we can look at too. So really wondering what, I know that a couple of our sister agencies reached out to us wanting to collaborate on something, and we definitely want to. So any sort of, I guess, what collaboration efforts could we do, this year? What are you thinking? Is there a social media campaign? Is there an event? Maybe we can host, a roundtable discussion via, an online, I don't know, with Facebook, if there is a live feature, there might be, can we make something work? But some, again, ideas we can share. Maybe next Monday, which is when we have the debrief on this particular webinar and on our discussion points, when what we're doing, and we can come up with this idea of the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Awareness Months. Think about what you want to do, and maybe at that next Monday meeting we can talk about it. As we get together, we can discuss ideas and maybe really have a productive idea of what we can host together. Yes. Okay. So community. But we cannot forget children. Children are part of our community. So what, children, youth, teens, what sort of activities can we involve them in? What workshops on DD 101 you could, make it more youth friendly, if you will. Again, different ideas of what we've already done up to this point. The coloring book. I know this year we've received this from our coalition, and I'm showing us here is our coloring book. And the theme is love like this. It's very cute. They're cats with a variety of different, talking points regarding consent, talking about space, safe spaces. It's very, very cute. But you can think about that, getting together with kids, at the same time having a workshop for the adults. Maybe the kids can color, have a discussion point, a chat about this, and what does this mean? What do you think it means? Give some examples, some real life situations, that sort of thing. It's very cute. Beach ball activities are good. This is very popular here we use it with our prevention specialist. We blow up a beach ball, and then we write on the beach ball, there's each of those colors. Usually a beach ball has multicolors. There's the white, the yellow, the red, the blue, the little, the colored pieces on the beach ball itself, like a beach ball. And you'd write on those colors, and you could write a word on each of those colors or a question on those colors. Maybe be very generalist. You could have a mix of fun and thought-provoking questions. What are you most afraid of? What is your dream? What does it mean to respect others? What does respect look like? Name one healthy relationship activity or action, that sort of thing. And you have these students that are in a circle that can then, pass the ball amongst each other. When the ball twirls and you catch it, you look and see what question's in front of you and you answer that question. So you respond with sign. If then you throw it back to the other person. They're responding, and it goes on and on. It's a very nice icebreaker event as well. Again, providing thoughts and making this become very specific for domestic violence or sexual assault awareness questions, depending on what you're doing. Then their idea of teen dating violence education. We've talked about that briefly. But again, there is no formal curriculum for deaf teen. There is nothing out there. Here at ADWAS, our prevention specialist typically will gather a variety of pieces and modify that to fit, various classroom styles and the like. A lot of visuals, role playing, thoughts of, tweaking, modifying, wanting to build. We do want to build something more formalized that we can use repetitively and that can be shared, but it's, kind of a progress, so. Oh, yes. The other cool thing here is in your location, it's getting your local community resources. Like for Seattle, we have the Seattle Children's Hospital. And there's a deaf services within that hospital that focus on counseling services, with youths and kids. And typically they have their summer camp on an annual basis. And so this group typically will bring their teens, ages 14 to 18, I think. Anyways, it's 14 to 19, and they come to ADWAS for a visit. They meet with deaf staff and see, oh, wow, what kind of work do you do? They meet a variety of different roles and people's work styles. We get together for a lunch. We have lunch with them, and we answer kind of a Q&A section, and they see the hotline. How does the hotline work? Test it, role play, and what is a hotline for? And then there's specific topics. One year, we talked about consent and to explain what that meant. Did some role playing, what does it mean? And then another year we talked about bullying. And another year we talked about dating violence. And, again, whatever the camp coordinator says, wow, this might be a big issue with these particular teens. So we try to create an activity related to their event. So again, it's a great thing. We have this here. So again, in your community, if you can think of something like that, tap into it. It's well worth it. It's great to partner and see if you have something like that. Prevention work, as I mentioned as well. Again, if you have a good relationship with a school, deaf and hard of hearing programs at schools, schools for the deaf, colleges, and the like. Again, it's a great opportunity to get into those groups. As you think through this, some of you may have already, you've been struggling with how to break through. Maybe there's a lot of resistance from schools, maybe, all and the like. Think about, as we get together next week, talk about that. How can we get in, or how to start dialoguing or reaching out, how to deal with any resistance you may face. Or any success stories would be great. Share them as a group next week. We can talk through that as we are together next week on that. Let's talk about PSAs, public service announcements. Yes, I do like them. Prevention, going to schools, middle school, high school, depending. There's one of the goals here is, as we learn and go through it, but the idea is making a PS at the end, and that's distributed at that school by their own. So it's kind of neat. So we had one that we did with bullying, showing kids kind of role playing, and they created the scripting, they acted it out, and they distributed it. It was a really cute video. It worked well. Then there's the idea of consent, healthy relationships. Again, there's a variety of topics you can get into. So on the PSA topic, it's always a joy to see visuals, creativity. It's bringing in different skill sets that different students have to that participation in writing, ideas, creative acting. It's really fun to see that change and develop from idea to actual and see what they've learned. And typically it's an 8-week or 10-week gathering program where this is done and develop, starting that development process, showing their thoughts in their work. And that really is our evaluation. We see this, that they're actually remembering what they've learned and what they've included and bringing into their project. It's really, really cool. Again, with youth and elementary kids, you could make a flyer or posters. Again, it can be shared in their classroom or in their different school buildings. Here in the Seattle area, there's no School for the Deaf here. The School of the Deaf is quite about 2.5 hours away from Seattle, but there's a lot of mainstream programs. There's deaf and hard of hearing programs within different schools here. So we go there. Yeah, so that's very good. Again, looking at, the School for the Deaf may be a little bit different, but I guess not near here. So at School for the Deaf, we do go there once a year. They'd like to have more, but I think this year we'll be going twice this year, so they're looking forward to that. But we're meeting with, they have an independent living, a living program / host high school. So students who go through the 4 years of high school but still need an additional 1 or 2 more years post-graduation to, get ready for job development skills and independent living skills, a variety of different skill sets before actually being off on their own and leaving the school. That's where we get involved and we do workshops with those groups. And yeah. So again, Washington School for the Deaf, or WSD, has been contacting us wanting to go again, talking to their classroom, high school students. So it's a great opportunity. So we'll be doing that here in the year to come. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I would just love to hear all of your projects, collaborations, what's worked with schools. I would just love to hear it. Any questions as I'm looking? Yeah, someone here had asked. Carolyn. Hi, Carolyn. Carolyn had asked, what is the name of the coloring book that you had just showed there? I wanted to find it online to order more. And I said, sure. Let's see here. Let's see. If you were to go to Washington Coalition Against Domestic Violence, WSCADV.org, and then there, and I haven't yet looked for that specific coloring book. Maybe they do have the resources listed there, and maybe you can find the book under the resources. And the title of the book here is Love Like This. Okay, and hopefully you will sell them, and then you're not just going to distribute them out to the agencies and just give them away. So hopefully you can sell them. Yeah, let me know too if there's any issues, because maybe I can get a hold of somebody over there and ask about it. We'll see. Okay, and check also into your states as well. Maybe your states have something similar. Okay, thank you. All right, moving along. Next, let's see, what time is it? It's noon, 12 o'clock. Okay, we're good to go. So now keep thinking about how to develop our event. Think about, of course, keep in mind, the rationale, if you will, or the reason behind the event that you're hosting. What's it about and how to present the message, to the event. Also, how we can be more creative, being creative on how to present, different workshops as well. Remember too, we joined, we do workshops, we do, DV 101, SA 101. What is domestic violence? What is sexual assault? And, and they've been going over pretty well, but the numbers are relatively small. It's a little disappointing. Some people wanted to, come up with different words, playing around with words. People might be fascinated to come in that regard and think, okay, and learn about a new word. I don't want you to make up a meaning or lie about a meaning or, come up with a double meaning of a word or, maybe expand more on a particular word. Just different ideas there to keep in the back of your mind. Noticing here in Seattle, it's here in Seattle is very hands-on. Or you watch a play, you watch it as an entertainment. If it's popular that way, people like to come and watch and enjoy what they're watching. It's interesting about trivia. Recently, there's a trivia that was hosted, and some community members, or friends, I say, hey, how come you didn't come? And they mentioned to me like trivia. I don't know anything about trivia. I don't know answers. I would, feel bad about it. And I think like, no, it's fun. You're working as a group, we're learning new things, and maybe they'll know for next time that they can, explain and promote trivia as, it can sound intimidating, but it also can be fun, or it can be a social event. It doesn't have to be something where you have to be super knowledgeable in order to come and play trivia. So it's a good thing to know, and that's good feedback for us. Anyways, yeah, as far as your message goes, you can think of different message, different workshop, just message it, not only DVSA, but also the different fields that tie or relate into DVSA. Generally, it's going to be fundamentally about DVSA, but you can also include a criminal or a non-criminal behavior component. For example, it could be talking about what is a criminal case, what is not criminal behavior, criminal systems, civil systems, expand on those. Some people would be definitely fascinated by the legal system and love to learn more. Yeah, some states may see domestic violence, as non-criminal, and some states say, yes, it is. And so there's a lot of discussion on that topic too. Also talking about a lot of behaviors that tie into domestic violence. Other criminal activities typically tie into domestic violence. Also domestic violence and burglary is one. Breaking into a house, then leading into domestic violence. There's, as far as burglary, they're not two separate things. Sometimes they are related. So to bring that up, also stalking, how does that tie into domestic violence? So those are just different ideas. The impact of, have a discussion about impact of DVSA on children, on people. Focus on that. Also, talking along the lines, positively too, having hopes, having a hope, or having, where you could, have a workshop that touches all of them, where you can have an understanding of a concept of what DVSA is, what benefits me, power control, and things, having hope there, and how we can have hope, and how we can find alliances and partnerships, and how much is needed. How much do we need them to be involved to end violence? Not just our work, not just advocacy work, but everyone's role and everyone's issues. As you're thinking about your message and how you're messaging your event and presenting it, you can use the message in a way, instead of saying workshop on these things, you can have an event that covers them all, like trivia, for example. What was hosted here was a Family Feud night with those questions, and people can enjoy playing these games, but also learning at the same time. That's hosting a fair is another way. Those are just examples. I have different examples too, but let me move along here. Oh, and before I talking about different examples, I did want to talk about this. I do recognize quite a bit in today's society, there's issues that are coming up a lot out in the world, tremendously, politically, socially, community. It's, the world events that are taking place. There is a lot of racism. There is a lot of oppression, autism. It's out there, and it is amazing. So, it all ties in. It's all, we can't just focus in on DVSA all the time. We also need agencies to expand and include and recognize the broader picture. Intersectionality, for example, the intersectionality of survivors, the intersectionality of community members. we have to expand and include more social justice work into our work. Because what we're doing now really is social justice. What we need to do is, name it more. We need to involve the community more. As far as social justice work, social justice work, we need to expand and include the different communities and allow people out there to know what we are doing, what type of social justice work are we doing, because it is social justice. I do feel like we need more of that moving forward. We need to grow on that. Also, for example, including, we did host in the past, we invited two wonderful presenter, Najma, and then also Delsha. We invited them to come here to Seattle. Let's see, it was, oh boy, 2-3 years ago. I can't believe it. Yeah, it's been around that time. And they presented about the intersectionality. They presented on, how it ties into domestic violence, and people really attended it well. And new faces there was great, because they were curious about the topic. And people, left and thoughts, saw many new faces too. It was great, as we brought in these presenters. And I know like a couple of them said like it's not what I envisioned. I envisioned, me learning about intersectionality and difference. But what I did learn about it, they're talking about domestic violence as well and how domestic violence ties into it. And I thought it was separate. And we said, no, they're all related. They're all together. People, attendees were very interested in, it was a great turnout. We did host 2 times together. We got together for deaf people of color as well. It was a lunch time. We catered in lunch for this event, and people got together and were talking about their own issues and their own topics. First time we hosted it, there was, I believe, 3 different facilitators, local facilitators. One was talking about advocacy in general. The other one was talking about education. And the other one talked about, oh, no, I can't remember. It's community, something going on in the community, in their community. And, we talked about each one of their point of views, each one of their, where the gaps are, what's needed, what's necessary for deaf people of color in Seattle. And so just recently, again, the second one, where there was a lunch gathering again, and we had one person who was facilitating the different conversations in that lunch. And the discussions, were happening, and it was great in that lunch. So we want to see more of that. I want to see more of that. That's what people need. People need their own space to get together and talk about these issues, and what they had went through. Because today out there in the world, I'm telling you, it's not a safe place for these deaf people of color, for LGBTQ too. They need agencies out there need to recognize that and need to help facilitate that and make it happen. It requires a partnership with these community members, and here in Seattle to start agency sponsors and host these different events, and hopefully the communities then will evolve and take it up on their own, and start this partnership and grow in that way. So that's something we're hoping for. And today, really, as it's been going more and more, the community accountability, the community care, and also there's transformative justice, and also restorative justice as well too. Very hot topics right now, up until this point. We're going to see more and more of that coming up with Deaf Action too. So Seattle here, the community here, is just a hot topic we've been talking about as community accountability as it pertains to these 2 topics. And there's more transformative justice work, and involves more thinking and figure out how and what type of activities and events, will reflect what we've learned through that. Not just workshops, but others, having roundtable conversations, deaf community accountability and access. ADWAS hosted a roundtable. It would have been maybe last year. Can't remember if it was last year. Time goes by so fast, I can't remember.
As we were thinking about what we would, a particular situation here in Seattle, really a hot topic regarding domestic violence, and the community seemed to become divided into 2 camps battling on this topic. So as an organization, we hosted an event. The survivor came in and said, I wasn't safe with this person here, and the organization was, didn't have a response. And there was no protection order. Is that in place? And how do we ask them to leave? How do we provide help for the survivor? I don't know the. Again, the message at the time within the community, the organization felt we should know every story before making a decision. And so you stay, you go, you go, you stay. We went round and round and realized, this is something that really everyone looked at ADWA saying, make a decision. And we're not here for that purpose. So we started a roundtable discussion, talking about the organization first, easy to identify pieces, inviting, two leaders from each of the organizations, the president, the chairperson, or, lead people, having them come together. And we had two facilitators facilitating this conversation. And we had to be it was very structured with very clear questions, or it become, it would spiral out of control. So we had these questions that went for about 2 hours. And the roundtable discussion was very successful. We had about 20 people at the table, about 10 organizations came together. And people left really having good thought, wanting more of that. Some people left feeling there were more questions than there were answers. Community accountability, that's part of the story here. So, what's the answer? There's not always the answer. There's a process, you're learning. There's a dialogue, a conversation. And some people were very structured and linear, and some were admittedly left feeling disappointed, wanting an answer, wanting to tell them, what we're going to do, what's step 1, what's step 2, 3, and 4. So this is not what this is about. This is a learning process. And so that's what some wanted. But again, ADWAS hosted this, and we wanted this to be passed on to the community and be hosted by other groups. But up to this point, it's been quite quiet, and we need to have some encouragement and support in that regard. So figuring out how we get back to that point. If you have any ideas, if you've done something with the community, some great ideas, please share away. Or on Monday's discussion, we can talk about that further. Let me advance a slide here. Well, here's the last slide. So think about this. Domestic Violence, Sexual Violence Awareness Month. There's average about 20 people that are physically abused by an intimate partner. Every minute. Every minute. So doing the math here, hopefully my math is correct, but 20 people, meaning in the month of October alone, in those 30 days, or 31 days, pardon me, 31 days of October with Halloween, can't forget that one. So I did the math here, and it's approximately 892,000 will experience violence in the month of October alone. Imagine 12 months of the year. That's an amazing number. And then the same goes for sexual assault, sexual violence. In that particular month of April, generally this is general violence, again with intimate partners as well. There's more statistics that are more specific, but there's a good general stat. Anyways, just good food for thought, good tidbits to share with your community, and they can, maybe they'll say, I didn't realize this, wow. I don't know anyone who's experienced any violence of any kind, and you probably do. Our work here in this field, we think about this every day, all the time, of course. We are doing the work. DVSA, Awareness Months help. There's more thought on it, but at the same time, it's nice to think if you have the time and a person and enough people together, you can do something every month, all year round, having visibility, being inclusive, including stories of our life with the community's involvement. Not just in this agency. So something to ponder. Oh, I think I forgot. Oh, let me back up here. Sorry about that. I missed one. I apologize. I overshot it. So, okay. Community events here at ADWAS. Here's some examples. Over the years, we've done various events. There's the 5 chairs, rating for Rosalie. What else do we have on the board here? And where we are. Yeah, those 3. Those posters you see there, those connect back to plays that we hosted during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. There are more plays that we've done, but here I just picked 3 of them to show you. I think we've done, I should count how many plays we've actually done. Started off with 1, we had about 60 attendees, which is a very good turnout for the Seattle area. People really enjoy the plays. At the same time, each play is developed by a deaf writer. We invite someone in who volunteers. Another time we had staff here at the ADWAS doing it. We had one staff person do it one time. Uh, we invited a deaf director to come on in and help out, and recruited volunteers, and we gave a stipend, kind of a thank you, and had a stipend here. So again, make sure you budget for this. It's something to consider, but that can help. As a thank you for volunteering, whether it's a stipend for their work, meals, drinks, childcare, interpreting services, deaf blind interpreting, all of that. The venue. Yeah, again, something good to discuss, but I forgot to document it here. But budgetary reasons are always something to consider. And obviously with Washington State, they've been very supportive with outreach. Um, we always want to budget for things like interpreting services, venues, meals, childcare, expenses, paying people to be part of projects and ideas, because it's a lot of work to do this. So other things is a clothesline project for DV survivors specifically. Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. At the national level, the coalitions Wearing Purple. That's a social media piece we have done, so I wanted to post that here. Family Feud was a game we played. It was it was for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It was a great, enjoyable quiz with some fun questions, mixing it up, and we developed teams. It was fun. It was a very enjoyable event. And that seems like a popular thing. Games, watching plays, documentaries as well. We had hosted a particular documentary. It was a Valentine Road, talking about bullying. It was bullying of a transgendered student in a school, and that led to a death. It's, I believe, a middle school setting. A middle school classmate shot another middle schooler. Oh, it's just very heart-wrenching. But Valentine Road. So that's one we premiered, or we invited the community to come out to. We got teachers and counselors, really anyone could come, but we specifically were targeting on actively recruiting people to come, and they came. And we had a roundtable discussion afterwards talking about it and facilitated questions regards to bullying, how to interact with bullying situations, any violence within schools, transgendered students, a variety of topics were discussed. So. But that's the of what some of the things we've done. Oh, other community things that aren't on this piece, but we did. We hosted a healthy community. And this was in February. There was no DV or SA related thing. It was just in February, but it was an outreach event, and it was a chocolate fest. So we invited organizations to come out and host a table, and it was free to anyone that wanted to come. And there was active hands-on. Kind of kid-friendly, family-friendly event, making sure everyone had providing chocolates of some kind. At our table, we had a fondue of chocolates. Other tables had chocolate candies, just a variety of other pieces. Had these tables with a variety of activities for the kids. At the same time, we had they have Jell-O pudding, and then we had a photo booth with costumes. It was really enjoyable. It's very family friendly and a good turnout. So again, this is an idea of what we've done. Okay, let me wrap up here. There are a variety of resources you can look at and definitely tap into these various resources. I've listed them here on the slide. This year is going to be the 30th for the DVAM, so there's specific social media toolkits that you can definitely take advantage of and use. Just Google this information. It should come right up in a Google search for you. All right. Well, it's almost October. So if you have any questions, please contact me directly. Here's my information. Or if you want to save your thoughts for next Monday's discussion we're having, this will be the same time we had it today, and having further discussions about this particular webinar. It could be, again, please bring ideas that you have, that what's been successful, so we can all share amongst each other, or bring any challenges you've had. If you need tips, if you're looking for advice or consultation, let's use that time amongst each other. Maybe schools have been resistant to counseling services. Teachers, how'd you get into schools? How did you or the school, for example, in school, something to think about right now for next week. But here, what we experience is teachers will say, sure, we'll come. But they say, don't talk about rape. Don't talk about this, that, and the other, which limits. So this is what we're here for. This is what we do. And so it's almost a taboo subject in some schools. So starting having this conversation. At the same time, we have to know, how we did this and how we're respectful, but that sort of resistance is difficult, and we can talk about that. And maybe also at a national level, we could all collaborate, nationally as well. That'd be a fantastic idea. Some kind of exciting event, because again, this can be a very lonely type of work, especially in a smaller agency and small communities with one staff member. It'd be nice to get together in a larger group setting. So, okay. So if you have any questions related to Deaf Action, or if you need any consultation or need further dialogue discussions, you want to have a video phone meeting or an email discussion, please contact us by email. This email gets to all of us here, and we can set up an appointment with the Deaf TA Action email. Also, check out the website, defaction.vera.org. Yeah, defaction.vera.org. And you can see the webinars we've had. We've posted them there. We have various resources listed. If you have resources you want to share, please share it to this email address, and we'll post it on the website on your behalf. Okay, well, once again, Deaf Actions are Mondays, and we've got a variety of events going on. We have a Motivational Mondays, what we're calling it. It's the first and second Mondays, and it'll be called the CC, which is the Conversation and Connection. So we're getting together, having discussions, any topic, what's going on in the world today, or what's going on in your area that's hot in the deaf community, or what's related to DV or SA. It's just, again, a good time to talk. That's the first and second Mondays. The third one's the webinar. And our fourth Monday of the month will be discussions on summary about the previous webinar. So again, next month's webinar will be October, let me look. Pardon me? October the 23rd. And I'll send out a reminder on that. And this is in regards to fiscal. This will be led by Aaron. More information on budgets about Aaron coming soon. So, again, so it's now 12:20. Is there any final thoughts before we go and wrap up and close for the day? Okay, I don't see anything. So again, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your participation and joining us. Please fill out the survey afterwards. The survey would be helpful in helping us with data and information, how we can improve ourselves and grow as an agency or tweak what we are offering to you. Again, thank you so much for your time. Have a great day.